What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another Battlefield 6 gun guide. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the third of the Season 2 launch weapons, which is in the DMR category. This is the GRT-CPS. And starting it off, as always, let's have a look at our raw power potential, and our rate of fire potential on this is 360 rounds per minute, and it's got the exact same damage profile as the LMR-27, meaning it's going to be a 4-shot kill to the body at any range. However, unlike the LMR-27, we do have a slower rate of fire, meaning we have a slower time to kill. And it turns out we actually have the slowest time to kill to the body in the entire game for a primary weapon at 500 milliseconds. That's not just slow for close range engagements, that's also slow at long ranges where DMRs are meant to excel. You're going to be outgunned by just about everything in the game if they're hitting their shots. So that is a huge downside to this weapon. However, similar to the recently buffed LMR-27, headshots are pretty good with this gun. It turns out with no special ammo, if you're just using the standard ammunition, in the first 2 damage ranges, you just need 2 headshots mixed in with body shots to reduce that down to a 3-shot kill. And if you do get that 3-shot kill, you're now killing in 333 milliseconds, which honestly is still not a very good time to kill potential in this game for close to mid-range. You're still going to get outgunned, even when landing those headshots, by most of the guns in the game that don't even need to hit headshots. However, you can reduce that down to just 1 headshot required to get that same time to kill if you use the hollow point ammo, at least within the first damage range, and also within that range, if you use the synthetic ammo, you can get a 2-shot kill if both bullets hit the head, and if you manage to do that at the maximum fire rate, now you can kill in a much more impressive 167 milliseconds. So that's really the only case where this gun, raw power-wise, has the potential to dominate. You have to be using synthetic rounds, and you have to get the 2-shot kill within the maximum damage range. Outside of that, raw power-wise, you're just straight up getting outgunned while using this. Now, speaking of ranges, let's have a look at our range profile compared to the other DMRs, and we've got a very standard range profile. That maximum damage range, which is very important, is 21.25 meters, whereas the second damage range drop-off is 75 meters. And while it is a 4-shot kill to the body at any range, those range drop-offs are important when it comes to those headshots and how they interact with the number of shots to kill. As for the next important stat to look at, especially for longer ranges, let's have a look at our muzzle velocity, which is 800 meters per second. And while that is a solid muzzle velocity for this game, there's really nothing wrong with that. It is worth noting, it's not as good as its closest counterpart, which is the LMR-27, which again has the same damage profile, same range profile, and a faster fire rate, and it also beats it in muzzle velocity. Then when it comes to hipfire, we just have a standard hipfire spread for the DMR category, and that's to say that hipfiring is generally not going to be a great idea unless you're like really close quarters and just want to hipfire as you're getting into the process of aiming down sight. And now let's have a look at quite an important stat for a DMR. This is recoil. And as we can see here, this is not a bad recoil plot, especially considering the fact that we're firing 20 rounds with this, so it does really cap out on how much it's going to climb. However, you might notice there is a bit of a gap between the first and second shot fired. That's where you're going to see the most amount of recoil with this gun. After that jump, there's not much of a jump or climb beyond that. But that's a bit unfortunate because no matter the gunfight, you're always dealing with that first shot jump, because you're never killing in just 1 bullet with this gun, unless the enemy's hurt, of course. But overall, of course, this is quite an accurate gun, despite the fact that there is that little bit of a first shot jump. Next, when it comes to our handling stats, they're pretty standard across the board, but one key area I wanted to point out here, since we also look at magazine capacity and reload time, this is the one key area where this gun has a clear advantage over the LMR-27, because by default, we get twice as many rounds in our magazine. So it's a little more spammable in that way. It also does have a faster reload time, so you don't have to reload as often as the LMR, and you reload a little bit faster when you do need to get a reload. But then finally, for our base multiplayer stats, when it comes to our movement speeds, this just aligns with all of the other DMRs in the game. There's nothing special about this. And that just leaves us with our REDSEC stats, and just taking a look at our 2 armor plate time to kill. This is quite bad at 1,000 milliseconds up close and 1,167 milliseconds at a distance. Now, obviously, headshots can make a big dent in this, especially if you're pairing it with the ammo types that help with headshots, and that's really where this gun will tend to excel. But if we're just looking at body shots, that's not a very good time to kill. In saying that though, one redeeming quality this does have in REDSEC compared to its closest counterpart, again the LMR-27, is that magazine capacity. This really comes into play more in REDSEC because with it being a 7 to 8 shot kill, most people are also going to be whiffing the odd shot here or there, and therefore with a 10-round magazine, there's often going to be cases where you're not going to be getting a kill on an armored enemy with a single magazine. You're gonna have to get a reload in between before finishing off your kill, whereas with a 20 round mag with this gun, that's not gonna be nearly as much of an issue, and you can often get that kill without having to get a reload in between. So I did at least want to give some credit to this gun when it comes to REDSEC. That extra magazine capacity will be quite helpful here. And now that we've got all of that covered, let's dive into a couple attachment combinations that I'd recommend giving a shot, at least if you've got the attachments unlocked. And the first one I wanted to share is my versatile build. With this, I'm using the CCO 2x optic, just because I like having a little bit of extra zoom. This gun is definitely designed to be used a bit more at those longer ranges, or mid to longer ranges at the very least. So I go with a slightly higher zoom value than I typically would. I don't like treating it like a full-on sniper rifle though, with super high zoom. Then for my muzzle, I've got the long suppressor on here to help a little bit with that recoil buildup, while also keeping me off the radar and making sure a diamond doesn't appear above my head every time I pull the trigger. For my barrel, I'm using the extended barrel to squeeze out as much muzzle velocity as possible. That bumps it up to 1,000 meters per second, and that's definitely going to help at those longer ranges against moving targets. For my underbarrel, I'm just using the alloy grip because this gun doesn't need a ton of recoil control, but it's nice to have a little bit of recoil control, and this one isn't harming my spread more when moving. For our magazine, I'm using the 20 round fast mag on this for a bit of a faster reload. And then finally, we're topping it off with hollow point, which one nice thing about this gun is hollow point is the default ammo at the very least. And that means at least within the first damage range, I just need to mix one headshot in with body shots to cut it down to a 3-shot kill. So that's one option to use on this gun, and this is also comprised of largely earlier unlocks as well, which is nice. Ideally, though, this gun really excels with synthetic ammo, which unfortunately is your last unlock, and I'll be honest, I have no intention of using this gun for long enough to unlock all of the attachments. I'm not there yet, and with the current state of weapon progression, I'm just not willing to put additional hours on top of the hours I've already put into this gun to get to that point. But I know how much damage this deals, and I know the potential behind it. So here is my headshot loadout. With this one, I'm using a slightly higher zoom optic, the Baker 3X. We have the lightened suppressor on this, the extended barrel, the folding vertical, the standard 20 round mag, and the synthetic tip ammo. And that is the key to this setup, because in that maximum damage range, you can get that 2-shot kill if both hit the head, and that will give you a very fast time to kill potential. And then at a distance, it's just helpful as well, because even at long range, you just need to mix one headshot in with body shots to cut that down to a 3-shot kill. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up today's gun guide on the GRT-CPS. And when it comes to my thoughts on this gun, honestly, I really don't like it. I think it just kills far too slow with body shots. And then even with those headshots, without synthetic rounds at least, that's still just not a good time to kill potential. And to be clear, it's not like I haven't been able to use this and get kills and find success and even top some lobbies with it. It's just at the end of the day, I know I'd be performing even better if I was using any other gun in the game. Now, I'm sure once you get to the synthetic rounds, this gun will likely suddenly become quite decent. But as I said, I'm just not willing to put the number of hours required in using a gun that I really don't like and really don't want to use, so I can eventually finally unlock some real potential out of it. So those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, including the other 2 guns that came with Season 2, I've covered those already. I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.